Captain Midnight.
This video is brought to you by World Anvil. On April 12th, 2006, an episode of television aired that would go on to define criticisms of Seth Macfarlane's Family Guy for years to come. And it wasn't even an episode of the show. It was part 2 of South Park's Cartoon Wars, which saw Cartman make his way to the Family Guy production office, only to discover that the show wasn't written by humans at all. Instead, a giant tank of manatees drag idea balls into a joke combine to create completely random combinations of topics and pop culture references to make an average Family Guy joke. South Park had a very pointed, very specific critique of the way that Family Guy jokes are constructed, and that critique has stuck, becoming one of the go-to ways to mock the show. And there's a reason for that. It rings pretty true. Especially back in 2006 network TV, there was no other show that relied on cutaways and pop culture references like Family Guy. That one specific kind of joke came to define the show, especially when people try to articulate what they don't like about it. And I'm not here to say that those critiques aren't deserved, or that South Park was wildly off base. Family Guy is not a show that I hold in nearly the same regard as the Golden Age of The Simpsons, or It's Always Sunny, to cite two shows that I've covered on this channel. But if there's one thing I can't deny, it's that the show has had incredible longevity online. There have been plenty of TV shows with huge online fan bases, and shows that have translated into shareable clips pretty well, but something about Family Guy seems almost perfectly calibrated to how we consume content online. Most, and I say most here instead of all because there's definitely a ton of exceptions, but most Family Guy jokes don't have all that much to do with the loose plot structure around them. Creator Seth Macfarlane is happy to admit that the show will do anything for a joke. The characters' emotions and the consistency of those characters aren't all that important, something that's often held up as proof of the show's lazy shallowness. Yet it's those exact qualities that make the show perfect for YouTube compilations and TikTok clips. And even its obsession with pop culture has helped propel the show even further online. I don't know how many times I've been looking at Spider-Man clips on YouTube for one video or another, only to have a bunch of clips of Spidey on Family Guy in my recommended videos. There's a good chance that there's compilations and clips in the sidebar of this video, or that you just clicked on over from watching one right before this. For as long as YouTube has been a thing, Family Guy compilations have felt like a thriving genre within it. That's something we take for granted now, but when you actually stop to think about it, it is pretty impressive, mostly because it seems like it fell into place on accident. When Family Guy premiered on January 31st, 1999, the internet obviously did exist. There were tons of chat rooms and message boards that covered TV shows as well. A lot of people logged on to discuss the latest episode of shows like The X-Files, Farscape, and Buffy the Vampire Slayer. But the internet wasn't really how you watched those shows. Real streaming video was kind of a distant dream, and most people accessed the internet through a dial-up connection. So positioning your network TV show to play well in online clips just wasn't really a thing yet. Family Guy was making cutaway gags from the very start, but without the knowledge that those cutaways would be lifted out of the show and featured online for decades. If you go back to the first 2 seasons of Family Guy, it's actually striking to see how few of the cutaways involve famous cultural reference points. Sure, they're definitely there. I'll always like that season 1 gag where a kid's JFK and then RFK Pez dispensers get shot out of his hands, but it's definitely not the constant onslaught of them that the show would eventually become. You have to remember, in those early years, the show was not considered a hit by Fox at all. It almost didn't return for season 3. And when it did, in the fall of 2001, it was torn to shreds in the ratings by NBC's Friends, leading Fox to once again pull the plug. This time, they thought, for good. Apparently, no one even wanted to rerun the show because of its low episode count. So instead of netting a big syndication deal, Fox sold syndication rights to Cartoon Network's Adult Swim for almost nothing. And the show did incredibly well in its new late-night time slot, becoming Adult Swim's most watched show. And that success was made even clearer that year by the staggering DVD sales. I feel like it's easy to forget just how huge that was for the series. Borrowing DVDs is the first way that I ever really got into the show, and I know I'm far from alone there. but I think Family Guy's biggest success story was still ahead of it.
Frag all your Family Guy friends in kick-ass online multiplayer.
You forgot to flip them off.
When the show was brought back for season 4 on Fox in May of 2005, it was an instant hit and has obviously been running ever since. 2005 also happened to be the year that YouTube launched, and I think it's always been an overlooked facet of the show's success. I can't say for sure what the first Family Guy clip uploaded to the website was, but one search will show just how big the show has been on the platform through the years. Whether it's a clip posted 20 minutes ago, a compilation from 2015, or someone filming their TV in 2006, those clips have always paired well with YouTube browsing. And even now, years and years into the show's run, you can find that success replicated on TikTok. It wasn't a show created with online video in mind, but it just so happened to play perfectly to the needs of online video platforms. Not that it exactly stayed pure of chasing those views. Family Guy definitely started writing towards internet-friendly cutaways as the show went on, in a process that Nerdstalgic covered on his channel a few years ago. The amount of cutaways definitely ballooned for a while. They started to feel less like funny little observations that the writers had about watching Star Trek or Family Matters as a kid, and more like desperate attempts to stay relevant. I will say though, the show seems to have really pulled back on that these days, with them now doing so few that Family Guy fans on Reddit have even complained that they should be brought back. Still, whether or not the show uses cutaways 20 years on or not, I think those cutaways will always define the Family Guy style in the minds of millions of people. And for many, those cutaways are enough to dismiss the show. They're proof that Family Guy doesn't care about narratives or characters. And most of the time, I'd probably agree with that. The most passionate that viewers ever were about one of the show's narrative choices was the death of Brian back in 2013, something that was always intended to be a cheap stunt. But at the end of the day, maybe that's okay. Is Family Guy my favorite TV comedy? No, I don't think I'd ever place it super high on that list. But online, the show transcended the need for narratives. It could shine in a format that suited it incredibly well. Uploads of the best 1 to 2 minute gags and jokes. Maybe that sounds like I'm damning the show with faint praise, but I don't really mean to. South Park's critique of it may have been accurate, but I think it also wrote off the show's secret weapon. Yes, some of those cutaways are lazy, but the ones that work have been shared and reshared thousands of times over, because the episode around them matters less than the punchline, which is exactly what the internet needed. Family Guy is a flawed show, but it was also the exact right show for the exact right moment in time. And it's kind of hard not to admire just how resilient it's turned out to be. After all these years, I think the show has cemented its place in animation history. It may have been resurrected by DVDs and syndication, but I think it achieved online immortality thanks to YouTube.
You can barely drive a car, and yet you are allowed to fly a blimp?
Yeah, America's great, isn't it? Except for the South.
See a sneak preview of Family Guy.
I'd really like to thank this video's sponsor, World Anvil. If you're a writer or love role-playing games, this is one to pay attention to. World Anvil is an incredible resource for writers crafting massive worlds, especially for those role-playing games. A perfect example is their feature Whiteboard, which offers an impressive canvas for writers and artists, allowing you to organize everything super cleanly and making it easy to connect the story threads how you see fit with text articles, art pieces, and even your own elements. Whether you're planning a creative D&D campaign or just trying to capture the texture and tone of your novel, World Anvil is useful for anyone with a big story idea who wants to see it executed. And if you're writing genre stuff, it's really amazing, as it makes it easy to create magic systems, family trees, and get across exactly the tone your story requires. So head to the link in the description and use code MIDNIGHT to get 40% off your annual membership.
Here's a special tip for the fellas and girls who have not already joined Captain Midnight's new 1940 Flight Patrol. You'd better hurry up and join at once, because there's a big adventure ahead. The thing to do now is to get started, because we're going to have not only barrels of fun, but loads of free gifts and prizes too.